Hey guys, in this video today we're gonna go over 5 things to do in Page, Arizona. Page is a tiny town in Arizona, but it's surrounded by some of the most gorgeous natural wonders that you will see anywhere in the world. On that note, let's dive into number 1. So the Vermillion Cliffs National Monument is a stunning area just west outside of Page, and it is some of the most red, rocky terrain that just looks so otherworldly, and it's absolutely amazing. One of the most spectacular places in the Vermillion Cliffs is called The Wave. It is a phenomenal area that's just absolutely stunning, and people have posted tons and tons of pictures of The Wave, but the downside of this is you need a permit to get here, and they only offer a very few select permits per day. So there's a very limited amount of people that can actually go to The Wave every day, and they give out these permits on a lottery system, so you have to apply in advance. When you apply for this system, you can only apply for specific days at a time. So if you're going to be in Page for several days, then you can apply for a permit for each one of those days. And if you get one of those days, you won't be able to get a permit for any of the other days. So this makes planning pretty challenging because you're trying to get a permit for specific days, while at the same time, there's other things in the area that you need reservations for as well. So it's pretty hard to try to balance it out and try to make sure that your days are free enough in the case that you do get the permit. However, when I went to Arizona and I applied for a permit here, there were at least 300 other people applying for permits for the days that I was trying to get in. So needless to say, I didn't get it. But there are still plenty of other things to do in Page that are absolutely stunning, even if you don't get to go to The Wave. And that leads us into number 2, the Glen Canyon Dam Overlook. This is a beautiful spot on the outskirts of the city to be able to oversee the Colorado River and the vast cliffs that surround it, as well as the Glen Dam itself. This is a phenomenal sunset location, so if you're in the city and you don't want to go too far out of the city for sunset or something like that, this is a phenomenal spot to just hop by, to go over to the overlook, and to be able to take stunning sunset photos. The Glen Canyon Dam is right along Lake Powell, and that leads us to number 3, Lake Powell. There's plenty to do in the Lake Powell area, the most popular being kayaking down the Colorado River and Lake Powell itself, and going to some of the areas that you can only visit by getting to via boat. So one of the things that you can only see via boat or kayaking is the Rainbow Arch, and that's a stunning arch in Page, Arizona. So if you have the time to go out kayaking and explore, there's a lot of neat slot canyons along with this arch and some small beaches that you can only get to via boat. If hiking is more your thing and you want to take stunning photos of the Colorado River, then this one is for you. Number 4 is Horseshoe Bend, and this spot is absolutely majestic. So some things to note about Horseshoe Bend: you have to hike to it, and it's about 0.7 miles each way. There's also a fee now, which is $10 per car, I believe. When you get to Horseshoe Bend itself, it's absolutely breathtaking, and when you're standing on these cliffs, you realize just how small you really are, because these cliffs are absolutely massive. The drop is about 1,000 feet. Sunset is by far the most stunning time to go visit Horseshoe Bend, and it's very apparent why. The sun sets right behind the canyon itself, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. If you're trying to go for sunset, I do advise that you go a little bit early because it gets very crowded. You can see it's beautiful here. Everyone's lined up here for sunset, which just happened, so now sun is just dipping over. And it's crowded, it really is. So one other thing to note is that you can bring a tripod here, which is good to know, because the next area we're gonna talk about, you cannot bring a tripod. And that brings us to number 5, and probably the most popular attraction in all of Page, Antelope Canyon. So there is a lot to know about Antelope Canyon. First off, there are 2 canyons, the Upper Antelope Canyon and the Lower Antelope Canyon. These canyons can only be accessed via Navajo tours. You have to be with a Navajo guide in order to go in. So there's lots of tours throughout the day that you can go book ahead of time. And that's one thing to note, is you'll have to book them pretty far ahead of time. The most popular time for the tours are around noon, especially because that's when the lighting is very just pleasant and nice in the canyons itself. So if that's something that you really want to prioritize, is getting maximum lighting, especially potentially seeing some of the light beams in the Upper Antelope Canyon, which we'll go over more in a second, then you're going to want to look into noon tours, which do generally cost a little more, but I do think they're worth it. One other thing to note is that you're not allowed to bring large bags or items into the canyon itself. You're not allowed to bring tripods, you're not allowed to bring large bags, or I think you are allowed to bring purses, if I remember correctly, as long as they're small enough. But basically, you really want to leave all of your belongings and things inside of your car. The only thing you can really bring are water bottles and a camera. So now let's go into the differences between both of the canyons and why you would want to visit one or the other. Let's start off with the lower Antelope Canyon, and that one is essentially in the shape of the letter V, meaning that it's larger at the top than it is at the bottom. This canyon is stunning in and of itself, however, you won't see the world famous light beams that you would see at the upper Antelope Canyon, which we'll go over more in a second, but the lower Antelope Canyon still is stunning and beautiful in its own way. One thing to note is that the canyons are attracting a lot of people, and when I first went in 2015, there really weren't a lot of people in the canyon, so we were able to go and explore and take lots of photos of ourselves with the canyon and the floor itself. However, when I went again in 2019, it was so packed that we were not able to basically even see the canyon floor. We were packed in there like sardines, and it made it very, very difficult to be able to take photographs of ourselves or basically the canyon floor. So most of the photos that we took were essentially pointed upward, looking upward at the canyon, basically over everyone's heads. So if you do want to take a lot more photos of you and your group with the canyon and to be able to actually see the canyon floor, then you probably want to go during a less popular time. You can definitely still get amazing photos of the canyon itself, and it's still a marvel to behold, even if you can't see the canyon floor itself. The canyon tour does start at one end of the canyon and goes all the way through the canyon. You exit the other side, meaning that you don't pass through the canyon a second time. This is different than the upper Antelope Canyon, which you will go through and then turn around and walk back. One last major thing to note is that the canyon itself does have stairs that you have to descend, and they're fairly steep. So if you're someone who has weak joints or someone who has trouble going down stairs, then this canyon might not be for you. There are quite a bit of them, and sometimes they can be pretty steep. The upper Antelope Canyon does not have stairs, so if that's something that's holding you back, then you probably want to look more into the upper Antelope Canyon. The total tour time through the canyon is supposed to be an hour. The first time I went, it was just about an hour because there weren't a lot of people and we were able to walk through the whole entire thing. The second time, because we were packed like sardines and it took so long to actually get through the canyon, the tour time was about an hour 40 minutes in the canyon, which was great for being able to take more photos, but at the same time, there was a lot of standing around where you're just stuck and you can't progress because everyone is just crammed into the narrow canyon. All right, so now let's look into the upper Antelope Canyon, and this one is the one with the world famous light beams that you've probably seen images for if you've looked into the Antelope Canyon. The upper Antelope Canyon is the opposite of the lower one. It's shaped like an upside down V, which is how you get the light beams because the light funnels through the narrow top and then goes into the wider bottom. This canyon is in and of itself just absolutely stunning, and it is a marvel to behold. However, just like the lower Antelope Canyon, it's extremely packed. So if you look into the upper Antelope Canyon before and you've been here, you've probably noticed that there was a photography tour and a standard tour. The photography tour allowing you to bring a tripod in and giving you 2 hours inside of the canyon instead of one. The thing is, now after I believe the beginning of 2020, they actually canceled all photography tours, so that is no longer an option, and now you can't take a tripod into any of the canyon. You still can take mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, etc. into the canyons. You just can't bring a tripod, and they won't prioritize you in the way that they did for the photographers that were in the photography tour before, where they were blocking off huge rooms to allow the photographers to grab shots of the canyon and the light beams, for example, without anyone in it. So that does not seem like it's going to be a thing anymore because they've canceled all of those. So now you'll be on the standard tours, which might make it harder to grab photos without people in them. They might still section little areas off for you to take photos, but it definitely won't be as drastic as the photography tours. If you're looking for tips and tricks, then I have a photo highlighting specifically how I took this light beam image inside of the upper Antelope Canyon, and that one was on the photography tour, so now I don't 100% know if that's still feasible and possible without a tripod and without people blocking all the extra people off so that you can get a shot like this, but I still think it's worth it to go and check out the tour. I've been on the standard tour the first time I went, and it's still phenomenal. You can still get really good images, and the canyon itself is one of my favorite places in the world, so I 100% would go back even if I couldn't go on the photography tour, and I would still bring my camera and definitely bring a wide angle lens. That's going to be your best friend. The only thing is the upper Antelope Canyon is a lot farther out than the lower Antelope Canyon, so in order to get to it, you do have to take one of the Jeeps that the tour companies do provide. These Jeeps drive on all desert sand, so there's dust flying everywhere. So the vast majority of the trip while you're on the Jeep is going to be probably you either shielding your eyes or just basically sitting there with your eyes closed. There's not a whole lot to look at, but there's just a lot of dust everywhere. And if you're carrying expensive cameras, then you'll want to cover them. Put them under your shirt or put them in a any protective thing that you have. Again, you can't really bring bags, so you can't really put it away, but definitely utilize whatever you can. If you have a hat or something, cover it because sand flies everywhere. The total tour time for the Upper Antelope Canyon is about 1.5 hours. So that's it for this video. That's 5 things that you'll want to do if you're in Page, Arizona. And if you want to do all of that, you'll probably need about 3 full days to do it at least. When I went, we drove from the Grand Canyon. The first thing we did was we did the Antelope Canyon tour in the evening, and then we went to Horseshoe Bend. Then the following day, we had a full day there where we did the Upper Antelope Canyon, and then we did the Glen Canyon Dam Overlook, along with exploring a bit of the city. The following morning, we saw the Vermillion Cliffs real quick, and then we drove off and we made our way to Arches National Park. So there is plenty to do in Page, and it is a phenomenal area. If you have the time to spend there, then you'll definitely want to make sure you try to capitalize and do everything because it's just so unique, and it's probably one of my favorite places in the world to go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this and I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions or comments at all, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. I'll be making more of these travel guide type videos, so keep an eye out for those, and I will see you guys in the next one.